Commander Vex of the Thalarian Empire stood before the Galactic Council, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's harsh lights. The assembled delegates from dozens of worlds fell silent as he began to speak, his mandibles clicking in the distinctive pattern of his species. "Honored representatives," Vex began, his voice carrying through the universal translators, "I stand before you today to formally retract all territorial claims against the human colony of New Haven. Furthermore, the Thalarian Empire declares Earth's offspring under our permanent protection." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Thalarians had been at war with humanity for 3 standard years, claiming humans were a plague that needed containment. This sudden reversal shocked even the most seasoned diplomats. The Centaurian delegate leaned forward. "Commander Vex, your species has repeatedly stated that humans represent a clear and present danger to galactic stability. What could possibly have changed your position so dramatically?" Vex's compound eyes shifted, and for a moment, the hardened warrior seemed almost vulnerable. "I encountered their young," he said simply. The story had begun 6 months earlier when Vex led a strike force to the remote human colony of New Haven. Intelligence suggested the settlement housed a weapons research facility. The Thalarians had planned a swift assault to eliminate what they believed was a military threat. Instead, they found a small farming community with exactly what their scans had detected, a large building filled with unusual energy signatures. But as Vex's troops surrounded the structure, they discovered it was not a weapons facility at all. It was a school. The doors opened, and dozens of small humans emerged, their ages ranging from perhaps 5 to 15 Earth years. They showed no fear as they looked up at the towering, armor-clad Thalarian warriors. Instead, a girl with brown hair stepped forward. "Are you here for the science fair?" she asked, her voice carrying innocent curiosity rather than terror. Vex had prepared for resistance, for weapons, for desperate pleas. He had not prepared for questions about science fairs. The translator worked flawlessly, but the meaning seemed incomprehensible. "We are here to..." Vex paused, his prepared declaration of conquest dying in his throat as a smaller human, barely reaching his knee, tugged on his armor plating. "Your armor is really shiny," the child said with obvious admiration. "Are you robots? Can you show us how it works?" What followed was perhaps the most unusual military encounter in galactic history. The human young, apparently immune to the concept of natural enemies, began treating the Thalarian strike force as honored guests. They gave tours of their projects, explaining with infectious enthusiasm how they had developed new agricultural techniques, created art from recycled materials, and even designed theoretical spacecraft propulsion systems. A boy named Tom showed Vex his project on sustainable energy, based on studying local plant life. Another child, Anna, demonstrated her team's work on water purification systems designed to help drought-stricken worlds, but it was 8-year-old Lily who truly changed everything. She had been watching Vex carefully throughout the visit, her young mind processing something the adults might have missed. Finally, she approached him with a drawing. "I made this for you," she said, offering a crude but recognizable picture of a Thalarian and a human standing together under 2 suns. "You look sad. I think you miss your home." The words struck Vex like physical blows. He had been away from his home cluster for 2 years, fighting a war he had been told was necessary for survival. Looking down at this small human who had somehow perceived his hidden loneliness, Vex felt something crack inside his hardened worldview. "How did you know?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You keep looking up at the sky," Lily replied with the devastating simplicity of childhood observation. "That's what I do when I miss my grandma. She lives on old Earth." In that moment, Commander Vex understood what made humanity truly dangerous to species like his own. It was not their weapons or their technology or their territorial ambitions. It was their capacity to see others as individuals worthy of compassion, even in the face of obvious threats. The human young possessed this quality in its purest form. They looked at heavily armed alien warriors and saw potential friends. They shared their knowledge freely, not from naivety, but from a fundamental belief that learning and growing were better when done together. Over the following days, as Vex struggled with orders to destroy the settlement, he watched these children continue their daily routines. They helped each other with problems, comforted those who were hurt, and included everyone in their activities regardless of ability or origin. When Mark, a boy with mobility assistance, had trouble reaching some equipment, his classmates immediately collaborated to modify their workspace. When the youngest children felt scared during a thunderstorm, the older ones told stories and shared blankets until the fear passed. They were building a better future, not through conquest, but through connection. Now standing before the Galactic Council, Vex tried to explain the impossible transformation these children had wrought in his entire species' understanding. They are not weapons pointed at the galaxy, he concluded. They are hope incarnate. Any species that would threaten such beings reveals only its own capacity for evil. The Thalarian Empire will be their shield, not their sword. The chamber remained silent for a long moment before the Secretary General spoke. The motion to establish New Haven as a protected sanctuary world passes unanimously. Commander Vex nodded, thinking of Lily's drawing, now carefully preserved in his private quarters. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from fighting, but from finally understanding what was truly worth protecting.